Welcome to the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa, where we discuss dating and other significant relationships.
Good evening, señorita.
Good evening, Poppy. Welcome back, everybody, to the Relationship Cycle. Nelsa. Tonight we are talking about jealousy, Poppy. Let's get into it.
Oh man, let's jump right in because the people definitely had something to say about this.
This is an interesting topic because traditionally I have not considered myself to be a jealous person. Um, just never really, well, was one of those girls that, where you going? Let me see your phone. I don't care about that. That's just too much. That's too much energy. I don't have it to give. So, it's a funny thing with jealousy because there's some people who feel like you don't love or care about them if you're not jealous. What do you think?
Oh man, there's a lot to take in with this.
I know how
I
we're gonna get it all in 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to discuss, but I will say that it's definitely something to be mindful of, and it's definitely something that me personally, whenever I am pursuing a woman romantically. I like to set those expectations early so that I can kind of get a better feel and understanding and also get a better feel for triggers, right? Because you may be with a partner who you're just starting to get to know and you have no idea what can trigger them, and you may be inadvertently triggering them with something that could easily be ironed out with a simple conversation.
Right. And, as it always does, it boils down to communication. But too often, what I found is like, I really meant it when I said I wasn't jealous. Now, there have been moments where, you know, somebody's gotten up under my skin or a situation has gotten up under my skin, but that's just not typical. But I think sometimes people will say they feel a certain thing, but then in reality, they're hiding, how they really feel. And, things do slip out. Things do start to leak out when you haven't been truthful about, you don't want to share. I don't, and I think for a lot of women right now, because we see that the market for men, y'all got like 1,000 to 1, women to men ratio. And I think for some women, people that I've talked to, friends, we've had some of these conversations around, you don't want to be in that pick me mode. And, they're old school, women knew sometimes that men were out with other women, but because of security, because, if they were the wife and, he was a good breadwinner, he was a good provider, he was a good mate to come home, they tolerated that he had a family 2 doors down or 2 streets across or another town across. So, for some women, it was breeded out of you like that's going to be the nature of a man. Don't let that keep you from getting the benefits of being the wife or the main one or whatever. But, new school logic, a lot of people don't want to share, but then the odds are so, you know, stacked in a man's favor for multiples. It's almost like, how do you have a real relationship when temptation seems to be on every hand?
No, I agree. It's definitely become harder to just be simply monogamous. And if you start looking at the trend and just the evolution of how the dating world has evolved, like for example, right now, even on television, on Netflix or TLC, you have sister wives or even polyamorous relationships that are starting to kind of be more of a normal thing and not something that just takes you back, right? Whenever you hear somebody speak on that, even on dating apps, you'll see women that have dating profiles, and they will say, "Hey, I'm married or I'm partnered," and he or she is aware, but they're still seeking, to date and to meet other people.
Mm,
So it's definitely evolved compared to the old school way of thinking, where a woman basically was almost raised and conditioned to just deal with it and put up with it.
right, right. And then I have found when I put their foot down on, no, I don't want to share my woman. No, I don't want to know that you've been with anybody in our same hometown. If you cheat on me, you can't come back. It's very absolute, you know, for the most part. I'm not saying this for everybody, generally speaking, but, most men that I talk to have that very, you know, I would be devastated if my wife ever cheated or if I ever found out I wasn't her first choice or, it's almost very, kind of selfish, self-centered a little bit when it comes to how they want to be treated. Like we talked about those double standards the other
Oh
week,
yeah.
you know, but that jealousy thing, like being able to see her wear something that some other man is going to see or, um, just even going out with the girls and feeling like she's too dressed up or looks too good, other men might be looking at you. To me, I just always thought that was so irrational. I'm like, if you know I'm coming home to you, if you know that my behavior towards you has not changed and I'm not icing you out, I'm not, um, we're not e- experiencing any lack in, um, loving and, my treatment of you, then I just always believed I trust you until you give me a reason not to. But so many people are like, I don't trust you because I've had so many other people who've cheated. I can remember going on Tinder, probably about the second or third time, maybe. And I would look at the um, profiles, and so many men would say, this is my perspective, I was looking at the men on the site. The first thing out their mouth, I don't deal with cheaters. Um, Not gonna share. Don't talk to me about poly or, you know, anything of that nature. It was just a very abrupt, I've been cheated on and blah blah blah. It's just a very kind of, I know this isn't about cheaters, but a lot of times jealousy tends to come from past experiences that people have had where they've had someone who's done them wrong. So now the new person has to get the brunt of the jealousy and the, suspicion because somebody else broke your heart. And now I have to pay for it. And so I was really amazed. And of course, I did swipe left because I was like, absolutely not. You have not dealt with that. You are not healed. You need to go back and get off this site because you are not ready for a new person when you're still that caught up in what somebody did to you in the past?
So it sounds like it's projecting, and that I think
Definitely.
kind of goes hand in hand, right? Like the jealous sensations got this individual projecting what happened to them. They're projecting to someone who you have no idea how they roll or how they conduct themselves. So I did a little research on this topic, which is, a hot topic, and
Mhm.
I um I saw a life coach on TikTok. Her name is Paige Moisex, and I will spell it out: Paige Moycex. And
Mhm.
I thought that she made some really good points, and she even mentioned that jealousy comes from insecurities and
Mhm.
and feeling invalid. Now
Mm.
there is good jealousy, and then there's bad toxic jealousy. So good jealousy is when somebody is having a conversation, and that somebody would be your significant other,
Mhm.
and they're coming at you from a place of genuine care for you and the relationship. Like, for example, if we go to a party
Mhm.
and let's say my fictitious girlfriend is dancing with another man, right? And maybe she started, I don't know, rubbing or grinding on him, right? Then after the party, I would have a conversation with her that I would address how that made me feel, right? Because the way I
Mhm.
see it, if I'm at a party and I'm with my wife or my fictitious girlfriend or fictitious wife, and I let another woman grind on me, that could trigger her. Because I know me personally, if I go to a get together, right, with my girlfriend or future wife or whatnot, and I see her grinding on some dude, any dude, that to me is gonna absolutely make me feel some kind of way.
Right.
But these are things that me personally, I like to get ahead on some of these things, and I like to give context and clarity on what some things that I do not find comfortable as acceptable behavior, just like I will also give her the floor to let me hear what some of your things or triggers are when it comes to jealousy and those sort of things. So I think that that's
Yes.
why it's good to speak on those things in the forefront. And as you know, just from a cultural sense, Latinos, like, we love to
Yeah.
dance, right? Like
Right.
the majority of Latinos love to dance. So sometimes I've been on, parties or family get-togethers or whatnot where, um, you have, a uncle or, a cousin or brother dancing with somebody's wife or girlfriend or whatever, and it's not a big deal.
Mhm.
However, it's not a big deal until it starts to get provocative or hands start to be put in
Yeah,
places that they
roaming
shouldn't.
everywhere, right.
Exactly, and that's where I would have an issue, right? Because I've had, women that I've dated that have danced with other men at get-togethers and stuff like that. And but those are things that I had already had a conversation about. So to me, I'd rather get ahead of it
Mhm.
than to try to have those conversations in the heat of the moment because I feel that that never goes well.
Right. And we had some great comments around that too on the post on Facebook. If you guys go to Jorge Medina or Nelsa Weber on Facebook, you can see our post as we prepare for our shows. And on this one, you asked our audience, um, tell us how jealousy has affected your relationships, dating experiences, how to handle and overcome these sensations and feelings. So, some people described jealousy. I want to jump around just a minute because Janet McLaughlin had a great little note saying jealousy definitely comes from a place of insecurity. You're either insecure about yourself or fearful about losing your partner to someone who you think is better than you in the areas you are insecure about, or you are insecure about your relationship. If you build a strong relationship with trust and communication, and you know what you have together, and you are confident in who you are, then jealousy doesn't exist. And I think that is true for the most part. But I think, like you said, those situationals where, maybe you're out, something's happened and jumped off that, you know, you didn't foresee, because those things do happen. Um, maybe things are a little shaky in your relationship, and that does create a sense of instability or insecurity, because maybe you're not as connected as you used to be. So, you answered to Shirley Bear. She said she thought jealousy is about the person, not the partner, and insecurity as well. But your response I thought was really spot on too, Poppy. Shirley Bear, what if your partner triggers you unknowingly, though? Or it's the past trauma that we project. To me, expectations, boundaries, and triggers need to be discussed as the dynamic between people grow, etc. I love that because it leaves room for growth and expansion. Not like you got to go out with the whole, guys, please hear us say, we are not saying go to the first meet and greet with a list of things that they can't do or that are going to set you off. That is so not appropriate. And you're going to be left at that first meeting and probably not called or texted or anything again. If you can't do this, you can't dance with other women, you can't go here with, you can't just be with your boys, you can't do this. That's a lot. But as you see that this is going to be serious, that both of you are investing in the relationship, being able to talk about, I had several partners who cheated on me and it was devastating. I, tried to get help for myself, making sure that I'm reading the signs. I like to communicate clearly to make sure that we're on the same page. You know, um, if you don't call, after a certain period of time after I've called you, sometimes that can make my mind go a little crazy, but I try to say to myself, people are busy, whatever. Like there are ways, again, of handling it so that you're not just going off half cocked and, basically looking just just wild and unchained.
No, I agree. And think about it. To me, I feel that we can have a productive conversation when we're both cool, calm, and collected, than say when you try to have that conversation and it's in front of a lot of people, whether it be friends, families, or strangers, or maybe somebody's had a few drinks, or you just overreact over somebody just innocently dancing. To me, I disagreed with her assessment that that's a they problem. To me, if we're seriously dating, it's something that we both have to discuss. Okay, where is this coming from?
Mhm.
Is this really jealousy, or is this just projection from other past experiences, right?
Right.
And that conversation does need to be had, because think about it. Like I mentioned earlier, in the Latino culture, every time I see my aunts, I go hug them and I kiss them on the cheek.
Yeah.
That's just what we do, right?
Right.
That doesn't mean that I'm, romantically trying to rile up my partner. I've dated a Italian girl before, and she told me she kisses her uncles on the mouth.
Right.
If she
Depends
wouldn't
on
have
the
told me that,
culture. Yeah.
if she wouldn't have told me that before, and I would have went out with her, and she would have done that, I would have been like, "What the hell's going on here?"
Right. Right. Now, Annie Carver made a good point. She said, I think there are certain situations that may trigger jealousy. Of course, one being the biggest, like you discussed earlier, past trauma or tragedy, and the person projecting the jealousy maybe doesn't realize that they're allowed to heal. She says, I personally never come across this much as I tend to be an over communicator. I have, however, had multiple men become jealous of my career and accuse me of putting it before them. I won't go into details here how I've handled those situations, but I definitely feel it would be a great topic to discuss. Society sees it as a norm for men to work 50 to 75 hours weekly, but when a woman chooses to, it creates insecurities and triggers jealousy. I thought this was a great point of when jealousy is not around other people, but circumstances in the relationship. So, Bobby, have you ever had anyone who may be jealous of you, like maybe your charisma? You're very charismatic. You walk into a room, all eyes on you. And, jealousy can be in other relationships too, not just in your uh, romantic relationships, but with even friends or whatever. But, to have a woman who is maybe successful or who's, a hard worker, who's trying to make it up her career ladder, and to have her man be jealous that the time she's spending at work on her career is taking from him, even though he may be doing the same thing, but it's seen to be the norm for men to be away from home like that, and women just deal with it. So, again, that's another bit of a double standard. But what do you think about, this whole jealous of situations or circumstances, not just people?
So to me, I think, let's say, for example, right? Let's say you start dating a bartender, right?
Mm-hmm.
A bartender, she's going to talk to everybody at the bar.
Mm-hmm.
She makes her living talking to people, servicing, people when they come to the establishment, and she gets tips. So as a man, if I know that the woman that I'm interested in is a bartender, I know that, hey, these are things that I'm either going to have to get over, or don't date her, because when I met her, she was a bartender, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's, take it a step further. Let's say you meet a woman and, she, I don't know, worked as a secretary. And now she's like, hey, I want to be a realtor, or I want to be a saleswoman.
Mm-hmm.
Then she's switching careers, and now she's going to be engaging with a lot of people. So if your relationship is not where it needs to be, and it's not healthy, or if it's, on rocky grounds, then yeah, it's very easy for your imagination and your emotions to get the best of you. So that's why it's important to put in the context, um, you know, that, hey, this is how you met me. So if you can't handle this, like the saying goes, right? If you can't stand the heat, then stay out the kitchen.
That part right there. Um, that's the truth. I mean, some of that stuff's cliche, but it's still true.
Like, think about it. That's
Um,
like me trying to date a stripper and then complaining, "Hey, I don't like all these men looking at you." Well,
right. You knew she was a stripper when you got with her. Yeah.
as when I went out and she told me she was a stripper, I knew that she was a stripper. So, like, some of those things you got to either live with or provide a situation where, hey, you know what, baby girl, you don't need to be a stripper no more.
Right.
So
Or
if
if
it,
she likes it, you need to respect that that's something she chose for herself and be able to deal with it or bow out gracefully because you can't force change on someone just because you don't like a certain way they live or a certain way they, choose to make a living. Like to me, you're changing the person that you say um you like or love by making them, change up and, of course, if that's not a choice, that's just a need and that was a quick way to meet that need. It's one thing to make that suggestion, but if she's not complained about it, if she likes her job and it just happens to be stripping, like I just think that's one of those things where like you gotta be secure in who you are and know that's just a job. She's a dancer, happens to not dance with a lot of clothes on, but you know, it's almost like um, again, what is the root of that? Is that because you have had someone in the past who, cheated and showed everything to somebody, and so now you've got that fear, always at the front of your mind that the next person is not gonna be faithful to you, and I think that's where you really gotta take ownership of your feelings. You gotta take ownership of you needing help to get over some past experiences. And you gotta do something about that proactively and not just keep passing the buck on to the next relationship and then wonder why people leave you or why you can't get a steady romance when you keep acting out in every relationship from that one hurt or two or however many.
well,
Um,
think about this. When I was looking at the clip of the life coach page that I saw, um, she mentioned that when you display that behavior, so jealousy, um, it fuels hatred, right? Like
mhm,
that's it starts with jealousy, and then it starts to slowly manifest into hatred, and then that hatred can lead to obsession,
right.
and then that obsession can lead to being vengeful. So if you're not careful and you let this spiral out of control, that is what you are facing. So when a woman shows me early on that she is very jealous, that to me is a huge red flag and a huge turnoff. Like, I'll give you an
Mhm,
example. I dated a woman, this was pre COVID. I dated a woman and we went out on like 3 dates.
mhm,
And she wanted to get together because she was coming to Charlotte. And I told her, hey, I am not going to be able to see you this Saturday because I got invited to go to a birthday party and I already committed to going with my friend, who at the time was a platonic friend.
right.
And I wanted to be upfront with her that, hey, I am not going to be able to see you even though you'll be in town because I had already made these plans even before she even came in the picture. And
Mhm,
again, this woman was a platonic friend, and I told her that I would go with her to this party. And she did not like that. And I'm like, we've only gone out on a few dates and you're already showing out and acting like this. That to me was a huge turnoff. And I definitely walked away from that situation because that to me showed me that, hey, I'm being forthcoming and I am telling you I'm going with a friend to this event. And she was on my social media. So she saw the pictures and everything. So it wasn't like, hey, I'm just making up a crockpot story. And even then, she still gave me that sensation of jealousy when we're just like in the early stages of trying to see whether we're compatible and like each other enough. And she was already showing me this side. And it, to me, it was a major turnoff. and I ended up walking away from that.
Absolutely, because if it's that serious to her and you've only had 2 dates, I can only imagine after, you know, a good 6 months in what was gonna happen. Like, that to me, screams, um, insecurity and maybe a little emotionally unstable, definitely emotionally immature, that you're attaching that quickly to somebody with the thought of ownership. To me, jealousy is almost a point of ownership and control where somebody is unable to control every situation. So when you're not in front of me, when you're not doing exactly what I say, when you're not jumping all those hoops, then I get angry. Like you said, anger is at the base of that, and fear. And that is just wild to think that you were going to honor that after only 2 dates.
Yeah, it
Like, you're
was
not even
three.
paying any of my bills yet. Get out of here.
Yeah, it was 3 dates, but and you know, it was to me it was astonishing because I'm like, we're still in the very early stages of the ball game, so we weren't even going hot and heavy. So I was very it really threw me off when I saw that, especially when I was forthcoming with all the little details. So if I was kind of being deceitful or not sharing the
Yeah, you were very
information,
explicit. Yeah.
yeah, then I could see why a woman would maybe be leery or cautious, because maybe I wasn't being upfront about everything and all the details. But no, I was very forthcoming because I know that, hey, I know you're getting to know me, so I want to be as forthcoming as possible. Because if you're already lying and the relationship hadn't even started, then man, we're already off to a wrong start. We're already on the wrong foot.
Mhm.
So for me, I'm like, all right, I want to give this a chance to just be honest and be upfront, because I'm gonna tell you what, it's just a beautiful, amazing feeling where if you are really into someone and you can just keep it a buck. And when I mean keep it a buck, where you tell her where you are, where you don't care if she even sees your phone, because you're being that upfront and that honest.
Right. Don't need a lock on it or
Nope.
whatever. But, I'm not going to ask you for your code. But if I see a message pop up while we're together, like if you're scurrying to go hide it and flip your phone over every time and you're looking, but you're flipping it back down, to me, now again, if it's 2 dates in, I don't feel like I have any rights to your information or to your whereabouts, how you moving. That's still exploratory to me. That's still getting to know each other. That's still, I might have somebody I'm still seeing to try to decide if I want to zero in on this relationship or that one. But to just think that you owed her that explanation that early, that's just way premature to me. Way premature. I had a friend, a male friend, and I asked, was he jealous and what made him jealous if he, kind of got into that space. His comment was, jealousy is a thing that I was always told by the old heads that it was a woman's trait. Um, but I don't believe that in any sense, he said. It's one of those things that comes naturally to men and women. It's how you curb it instead of feeding it. It's a lot of praying and a lot of meditation. Jealousy to me is a want for something that your mind is telling you that you need that someone else has. And
Ooh,
I thought again, and that was a mouthful, right?
that's
But
deep. I like that.
yeah, I thought about again being jealous of someone who's in a different position, or, you want to be in a position of authority, or you want to be popular, or you want to be, out front, but the other person is. And sometimes that happens in love relationships, not just working long hours, but you might be, as a woman, especially, you might be a leader in your organization. You might always be um, given special permissions or getting to do special things, or they take you out to lunch, and your partner may be, a worker in an organization, but not a leader. And so for some people, that can cause a lot of jealousy in the relationship. Being popular with people, having everybody stop and talk to you and know who you are, and having certain notoriety in your circle while nobody seems to know who your partner is or really connect to them. That can create a sensation of jealousy for partners when they don't feel seen or heard or valued as much as their mate. So again, a different sort of angle, but still can be very destructive to a relationship.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why to me it's always important, right? And I tell, people that engage in these conversations with me, whenever you are in a relationship, especially a marriage, don't
Mhm.
compete with each other, work with each other.
Together, yes.
Because you're a team now. We're
Right.
team Medina, we're team Smith, whatever last name you want to say. But don't compete with each other because that ultimately can create a wedge and lots of friction, like you were speaking on, that's not healthy for the relationship, and that eventually it's going to become an issue. I do want to tackle this
Mhm.
because I have had conversations with, friends, acquaintances, my male counterparts, right? And sometimes they come off, territorial and jealous about a woman that they are not committed to. And I'm like, bro, you can't be tripping about that if you don't want to claim her and you not, trying to make her a girlfriend. Why are you tripping about that? Like
Mhm.
that is out of your jurisdiction, my man.
That's right. That's right.
And listen, and men do it, and sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it because, quote unquote, they're being territorial, or now when they see that, hey, she's kind of not coming around as much,
Mhm.
or maybe she's not spending that quality time that you were getting from her, those are sensations that as a man you have to be okay with. When you're just keeping it casual, hey, everything's fair game. And that's happened to me before where it was just a casual situation, or friends with benefits or whatnot, and then sometimes we ran into each other in a public setting, unsuspectingly. And at first, it's a shock. At first, yeah, you do get like a certain sensation, but then uh, I have to, tell myself, hey, she's not my woman, so I have zero ground to stand on because
Right.
if the shoe was on the other foot, I wouldn't want her coming in my kitchen and making a mess. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And if you have not put your flag in the ground to claim her, you can't make up all these arbitrary rules. And same for the other side. Like you can't put somebody in um, girlfriend wifey mode and try to have those privileges, and you haven't even said, "Look, we go together," like junior high. So, just like world are people doing out here? You just like want to have your cake and eat it too. But I think this particular episode for me, it really allowed me to think through my own moments of jealousy and what was I feeling. And I will have to say insecurity was one of the things that popped up for me in the moments that I could think about, like when I actually did find myself feeling jealous of somebody. I felt like, and this I think can happen too. The other person was attractive. I felt like my mate, you know, was looking a little extra hard or laughing too hard or something. And but you hadn't been laughing at my jokes like that lately. You hadn't been
Oh
you hadn't been looking
man.
at me like that lately. So again, I think not just even past experiences with other people, but depending on what the climate of the relationship is in that moment, that can sometimes lend itself to jealousy, because if we're on an off moment and then you telling me you're getting ready to cook some magical poppy steaks for somebody, if we were in a relationship, that would make me feel away. Like, you had been cooking for me lately. Why are you cooking for somebody else? So I think for people, y'all, Poppy and I are not together, people. I'm just using this as an example. Calm down. Calm down. But
Contrary to popular belief.
contrary to popular belief. But just as an example, because that's something that you do, that's something that I know you take a lot of time. And that's the other thing. I know sometimes like people go to work looking how you looking. Your girl, you hadn't been doing your hair. You're going in there with your leggings on and just looking a mess. And then all of a sudden you're wearing makeup and got your hair done, you got your nails done, you're going
Heels,
in with some new outfits. Now,
pair of heels.
right? And pencil skirts with some fishnet stockings. Honey, he's gonna notice something is amiss. So, that again sometimes is not you being triggered by a past event, but I'm like, now I've been looking in your face this last 6 months, and you barely put on lip gloss or some Vaseline on your lips, ashy and walking around here looking crazy. But now all of a sudden you all dressed up, and for men, you putting on cologne and getting fresh haircuts when you have had a ratchet head all winter long, all summer long, whatever. And then all of a sudden you just come with a whole new look and you know, putting yourself out there and I'm not involved in the evolution. Like I'm not being asked out on dates with this new haircut and this new cologne. That to me is like you said before, you're almost giving them seeds of discord to sow with no
Let
explanation.
and let me add this to the conversation that going back to the conversations that I've had with friends and acquaintances and such. I also brought up the point of, okay, is this you being jealous of her, or are you just thinking that, hey, I'm no longer going to be able to sleep with this woman anymore because somebody else has come in. I got a fox in my hen house, and this fox is about to take my hen. And I think to me, it seemed to me that the jealousy was based more on the territorial aspect and not the, hey, that's my woman. I want to, make her my girlfriend, this and that and the other. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It,
Absolutely.
it was more like, hey, this is a wake up call to know that, hey, she's about to find somebody who can give her that quality time and all those things that she's seeking. And now skating by and just casual sex ain't going to be good enough, so you either step up and man up and do what you got to do, or step aside and let it be.
Yeah. And that to me is where people get a little selfish. It's like I want to keep you on pause because I don't have a real something wonderful yet, but you're eating up somebody else's time where they could be finding the person that's for them, and you really don't have any interest in, seeing that thing gets fat past situationship. And to me, I just think that's grossly unfair. And you're really leading a person on, which can be very dangerous. I tell you the truth, because some of these movies like Fatal Attraction and um you know, I can't think of the other one. It was a Tyler Perry movie, but anyway, you're having these affairs or you're having these relationships and you get the person hooked on you and then you string them along and want to move on to the next person and be all happy and I was never really into you like that, but yet you've had this person's heart tied up with you, and that can lead to some very dangerous, after effects, and we don't um, advocate violence ever, 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 ever. Just keep it pushing. But sometimes people snap in those situations. They got a whole show on that where people have got to the limit, and some people say all the time jokingly they've only got one more good relationship in them. You
Oh my
know,
god.
that's the new thing. But there's some people out there that's like, don't waste the one good one left in a person if that's not what you really want. I just think that's just so diabolical sometimes, knowingly, not just you trying to figure it out. That's one thing. But when you know in your heart of hearts, like guys who say they don't want to get married and string you along for 6, 7 years and then meet somebody and get married in 6 months. To me, that's you knew you weren't gonna marry her. You knew she wasn't the one. And as soon as somebody pops up, you're ready walking down the aisle. Don't do that to a person, and then they're jealous, they're feeling some type of way, and then they take that trauma. People take that stuff into the next relationship if they've not spent time healing and dealing. So that's just my PSA for tonight.
Oh, I listen. I think you are hitting the nail in the head, and that's why it's important to be honest with the intentions. And when people ask you, "Hey, what are you ideally looking for?" Right? I always ask that because I want to know, like, all right, are we a good fit, right? And if we're not a good fit, then say so. So that way you are not misleading and you are not trying to pull a fast one on somebody, because that's when things really get messy. And then that's when you're playing with people's time. And as we mentioned before in prior episodes, time is irreplaceable.
Right.
Probably one of my biggest pet peeves, right? Biggest turnoff
Right.
is when I feel that somebody is wasting my precious time. Now, if we're both on the same page of what we're looking to get out of this, if we're both on the same page on, hey, you know what, I just want a quality woman to spend time with and have some good intimacy with, even if it's just exactly what it is, as long as we're both in agreement, then it's all good. But the moment that you start feeding people lies just to kind of keep them hanging around, then that to me is inappropriate and pretty fucked up, because now you
Hmm.
are misleading, you are giving this person false hope, and then that's when things really get messy, and then that's when people start showing their ass.
That part. Let's tie this one up and put a bow on it, Poppy. But I think really it looks like this whole issue of jealousy. It's there. It's a human emotion, and we're not saying that you're never going to feel it. But I do think proper management through communication, expectations, ground rules, whatever you want to call it, is definitely one of the best ways to manage it before you get too deep into the relationship, but not too upfront with the, you know, don't start following somebody now to see where they're going and it's just the first date, second date. But I think it's reasonable though to say, you know, talking about your schedule, talking about people who may still be in your life who are friends of the opposite sex, like laying that stuff out to me is a good way to start off on the right relationship. And if the person doesn't, if they don't act right when you say it and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to get on board with you, then maybe it's time to get off the train.
To me, just to kind of put a bow on this, I think that those sensations of jealousy with someone that you care about or that you have some sort of, you know, connection or emotional attachment, I think to me
Mhm.
that's normal. My biggest thing with that is, how do you handle those emotions and sensations? Because some people lose their shit, get violent, want to show out and make a scene, and at the end of the day, you're just showing your partner and everybody else that you're insecure and unstable,
Yeah,
instead of taking a step back, maybe addressing some of these concerns early when you're cool, calm, and collected. And I feel that that to me can be a more effective way, instead of lashing out, because when you lash out, you may do some shit you can't bring or take back.
that's right. That's right. And it's destruction to the relationship ultimately. You're chipping
Oh,
away at the trust, you're chipping away at the I guess really in and of itself. So, if you enjoyed this show and would like to hear more, you can follow us on Spotify or other podcast outlets. You can also go to our YouTube station, Poppy. Give it to the people, please.
the relationship cycle with Jorge and Nelsa. Please like us. Please subscribe. Please give us your comments. Give us your feedback, good, bad, neutral, or give us ideas of future topics that you guys want to hear. But thank you so much for your support and love, and we are going to keep moving forward. Buenas noches, mi gente. Thanks for joining us today on the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa. Do you have show ideas? Email us at jorgeandnelsa@gmail.com. Follow us on Spotify or anchor.fm for more great shows.